Was this real recently?
2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. There was a gravel race up north of Tulsa called the Osage Passage. It was put on by Tulsa Tough. It was like a really nice production.
Mhm.
And but the start of it went through this uh like private ranch, and it was all like ranch roads and super technical rocky terrain, and I was just too far behind, and I was trying to get up to the front, so I was passing people like an idiot, and completely my fault. Totally my fault. um I think I actually don't truly remember what happened because I hit my head, and like I remember right before it and I remember right after it, but like I still have a front tire puncture from the crash. And so I think I may have punctured and lost my front wheel. I think that's what happened, but I don't know for sure. um but dude, these are the chances we take, right?
Dude, oh man, like Oregon Trail, there were some times I felt like I'm gonna die.
Yeah,
And I mean, it was really funny. At the end of the week, I ran into that guy Barry. What's his
yeah,
last name? Wick? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I was like, yeah, man, you guys are just on another level, blah, blah, blah. And we were talking about the bikes. He's like, wait, you did that whole race on 38s? I was like,
Yeah,
in a 37. He's like, that's frightening. And I was like,
yeah.
you make me feel better because I was scared at some points.
Yeah, if you would have had like 45s, your life would have been completely different.
What is 2.1? What does that equate to in
2.1's like 55,
Oh my
50.
god, that's what those guys were running?
Yeah.
No wonder they could
Ah!
ride through the sand. I was so pissed at that race.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
Lord.
know.
Well,
I
hey,
know.
dude, thank you for sitting down and doing this.
Yeah, of course, man. I'm
Thi
stoked.
this
It's
is,
good to like I'm in this spot where like I kind of have to like be super stationary. I can't move a bunch, and so like I don't get to see people, or so like I was looking forward to this because I get to talk to a human.
yeah, you know, talk to a human and you could just shed some amazing knowledge because the whole point that I've been, like, reaching out to people to do these is really kind of goes back to way back to when we started Evoke Bike of being like, okay, I was talking to Patrick on the phone and I'm like, dude, we should record this. There's a lot of, I forget what we were even talking about, something just like bike
Yeah,
racing.
right.
And our history goes back. A lot of people probably don't know this story that when I first saw you, didn't know you, is when
Yeah,
I moved to Tennessee, go out to Crosswinds Classic. And I think
yeah,
I told you this.
yeah.
We're warming up, and I see this dude rolling down the road the other way. And I'm like, who is this badass dude? And we saw you, Chad, and somebody else. And I was like, yo, who are the blue and green kids? And they're like, oh, this team from Oklahoma City. I was like, yeah, they look like bike racers. Like those are who we're watching out for these dudes. So that was the first like Andy Chasteen has an aura, whether you know that or not. I'm sure people will tell you that all the time. But it was like, okay. And then we linked up through DNA, and it's just been I've learned a ton from you in the space of it is bike racing, but it's like you're in the industry. You seem to always have a great like recommendation for, hey, how do I reach out to this company? Hey, I'm going to try and grow this team. How would I do this? Hey, I want to grow my personal brand. What would you do? Um,
Right.
and I'm kind of curious where you've kind of gone. I just want to talk to you about all this stuff. I think it's going to shed a lot of light to people that are listening who are just starting getting into racing
Right.
and that type of thing.
Just a
So,
bike nerd. Just a bike nerd. That's it.
yeah, but you have a really good thing of even it's on your, I think, website or it's not on your Instagram where it's like branding, strategy, photography, content, social, and copywriting. And I'm like, he nailed it. Those are all the things he's really good at.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, go ahead. Go ahead.
go ahead. What were you thinking when I said that?
Well, I just, you probably eventually want to get into this, but like for my business, I never could make a good living just shooting photos. I had to add to that. I had to add to the total package in order to become successful at what I wanted to do. So, um, and I don't know how I mean, I don't have a degree in any of this,
Hmm.
it's all self-taught. It's all, Some of it's probably ingrained into my DNA. My mom told me that when I was a kid, I wouldn't even let her fold my clothes because she didn't do it right. You know,
Really?
I'm a particular person. And I think that obviously that stays with you as a human as you grow, right? Like, you know, I'm still particular. I still look at the details of things and how do things look and how to like, that's, you know, it's just part of like my personality. And that's how I how I came to do what I currently do, I guess, you know.
Well, so this is a really good jumping off point because it was a really, I mean, this conversation may not have been happening if I wasn't sitting at your kitchen table. You were one of the people that when I was one foot still in medical device,
Yeah, I
one
remember that.
foot kind of like, I don't know if I can really make coaching a full-time gig and like
Hmm.
make the money I want to make. And then I'm going to try and maybe get into like this social media marketing because I was helping Chris with his office. I'm like,
That's
maybe
right.
there's a business here. And I said to you, maybe I would just go all in on coaching. And you, without hesitation, like, yeah, you should probably do that. And I was like, yeah. And you said, yeah, it seems like you and Patrick have this good thing going. Like, why don't you
Hmm.
do it?
Right.
And I looked up to you as an entrepreneur who was making his living doing what he loved to do. And you're like, yeah, I mean, I do all these different things, but it's not like a job. And you're working
Right.
on these projects. And it kind of like opened my mind up of, okay, how, and kind of this is where I want to go. Let me map it backwards. What do I have to do? How do I take these steps forward? And I was actually upstairs taking like SEO classes on Udemy
Mhm.
when I was crashing in Mav's room, just like that weekend. It might have been OKC or some
Yeah.
spring race. But let's back up because this is really
Yeah.
good for people that want to get out of the 9 to 5 gig. I mean,
Right.
I get messages from people who are like, there's two types of messages. Hey man, I love the stuff you post. It's really inspiring to try and like ride more and get out and like break out of my routine. Very cool.
Mhm.
Then there's the other messages who are like, oh man, must be nice to ride at 1 p.m. And I'm like, yeah, it's great. I'm super thankful when really I want to be like, hey, F off, dude. I've worked really hard to create this schedule for myself.
Sure.
Like, don't be bitter.
Yeah.
If you go on LinkedIn and look up Andrew Chasteen, you were out of college and you did recruiting, purchasing, and
Yeah.
business development. So
Yeah.
you weren't on this, you like went kind of where a lot of us go. We get out of college, we get a degree, let's go get a job
Sure.
and work for somebody. What was
Right.
the transition mentally of like, this isn't me. I want to do something different. Like,
Yeah.
were you in photography then?
I mean, yeah, I'll back up. I was really never meant to work for anybody. I just, you know, I was a bad kid. I never listened to, you know, what my mom said or my dad. And like, I was always getting in trouble. That was back when spankings were okay. And I would get spankings and I'd laugh at my dad while he was spanking me. Like I was just I never was uh, meant to work for people, right? Like, and so I got out of college and I worked for a bank and for a year or 2 years. And then I worked as a recruiter for a couple of years and I made really good money, but I hated it. I wore a suit every day to work.
Get
And
out of here.
I mean, I'm white trash. I'm not meant to wear a suit. You know, I'm a
I
bum.
don't, dude, I've stayed in your
So,
house. I don't think you can call yourself white trash
but
at
I
all.
was never meant to, like now I don't even own a suit. I just don't own one because I wore one every day for a couple of years. And so I got into photography through a buddy of mine. And, that was a couple of years before I got out of all the corporate world, I guess you could call it. And I got super into photography and I decided to quit my job. I saved up some money, kind of had a little bit of a nest egg so that I'd be okay for a year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and not, and I'd made no money that first year. Like it was a struggle, but I did enjoy the freedom and I enjoyed being able to do my own thing and be on my own schedule. And the rest is really kind of history. Like I have fumbled over the years, not making a lot of money and then maybe building websites for people or, you know what I mean? Like I hustled at times when things weren't good. But I now I guess we come back to the point where I never could make a good living just shooting photos for, when I first started taking or shooting photography, I did weddings and whatever could pay the bills, right? And then I grew to hate all of that because I didn't want a job. I wanted a hobby that I made money at, right? That was my goal in life, was to have a hobby that I made money at. And so I shot cycling photography over the years for free, right? Like, because I loved it. I would go to races, I'd shoot races and, you know, whatever. And it finally kind of fell in line when I decided to package my, I guess, my services into a vast array of new things other than just photography. So social media, writing, brand strategy. I even do some product development for some of my clients in the bike industry. And so I tell people I'm doing right now what I would do for free. I would do what I do right now for free if I could, because I love it like that much. I love it that much.
It's keep going, sorry.
I just,
you're really good at it all too, which is awesome to see as like an outsider and just watch what you're doing with not only your own personal brand, but the brands that you work with and represent. It's like, once I knew who was behind some of these accounts, I'm like, damn, dude, that's Andy stuff. Like, this is fire. It's awesome.
Well, so I tell every client or potential client that I'm working with that if I'm not passionate about your brand and what you're doing, my work will be terrible and you will hate it and I will fail. I'm very honest with all the people that I potentially am about to work with or for, that I work off of passion and emotions, right? So if I'm not into your brand or that certain, you know, brand philosophy or that company or whatever, my work will be terrible and I'll fail at it. And so that's why every client that I work with currently, I love what they're doing. I'm passionate about it. And I feel super thankful that I get to do this, because I know that a lot of people go to work every day hating it, you know, and I don't feel like I have a job at all. I feel like I've been unemployed for 15, 20 years.
You said that to me. You're like, I don't have a job. I'm like, dude, I'm at your house. I'm watching you work. You're doing like, they're projects that I enjoy doing.
It doesn't feel like work, man. It doesn't feel like work.
Man, it is so important here though. Like, jumping back to what you said, when you're initially doing jobs that don't make money, when you're building the foundation of this. I've done it twice, and I've told someone before, some of your best work is when you're not getting paid. When I first went out on my own in medical devices, the first year on my W-2, I could have made more money at McDonald's. Literally, it was all like getting my name out there. Who am I? Building relationships, getting in the hospital systems, da-da-da-da. Also, I could make more money later. But a lot of people don't have the foresight to be like, okay, I'm gonna eat shit for this year and make 30K so that I can make way more down the road. But it takes that discipline to be like, okay, this is the game plan. Like, I'm not just here, not just this month's paycheck. And when we started EVOQ.BIKE, I mean, I walked into a hospital in Arkansas and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. And Chris was actually like, why don't you do the coaching? Like, you love it. And once the best thing that I've learned, which has been a huge like momentum gatherer, you close one door and so many doors that you don't even know are there will open. I'm sure you saw it, and like more brands reach out to you. You do a really good job with one brand, then there's this other brand. And I think that's even like, you have people that approach you and these brands are incredible. And then you go in, and since you are passionate about it, you crush it. It's like, I've watched, you know, through Allied Cycle Works. Obviously, I saw that first because I was on the DNA team. We were sponsored by them. I think you had just picked up a relationship with them.
Right.
And it's like their page has exploded and the content crushes from us. Like, there's clearly someone passionate behind the camera writing not only like funny captions, but ones that have people engage and make you think, if you want to interact, which I think it's the whole point of this, like, social network.
For sure.
And this is almost like a two-pronged question. It's good to hear it from your side as an individual, but also you've been involved in running a team with Chad in DNA, where I remember somebody came to me when I was helping to run a team up Northeast, Mount Bora, and they were like, yeah, I want to get this team together. We need like $5,000, right? And I was like, dude, think about it. $5,000 is like one stage race. You need a lot of money.
Right.
What's a good way, maybe from both sides, running a team, but also in your own professional life, of how do you build these relationships? Like, how do you go out and do you meet these people first? How do you show value? How do you, maybe you didn't have a big portfolio at once. Like, how do you really get your foot in the door, let's say? First, let's talk about it from a personal standpoint, like you as an entrepreneur. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Joey's watching this right now and he's like, this is me. I hate my job. I'm in recruiting. I'm pretty good at photography.
Mm-hmm.
His own page, does he work for free? What do you think about working for free? I mean, we're kind of talking about that. There's some people like never work for free. I disagree with that, but
There's definitely a taboo, especially in the photo industry,
yeah.
to not work for free. But I think that if you really want to get a start in that,
Mm-hmm.
especially in photography, like you have to work for free. You just have to do it. And you're going to upset some people who are like well-established photographers out there because they don't work for free.
Mm-hmm.
And they quote value their work. You know what I mean? Which I mean, I agree with that sentiment, but let's not get on our high horses here. A lot of people can take pictures in the world, right? Like, so I worked for free for a long time.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is because I loved it, right? Like I wanted to, and I wanted to go to a race or go on a bike packing trip and shoot that trip, right? And like, I even submitted some of those photos to brands that were in the, like maybe their product was in the photo, and said, if you would like to use this on social media, go for it. You know what I mean? Like,
That's
I
awesome.
didn't charge anything. Like, and it was all because I wanted to get my foot in the door. I was hustling. Like, I mean, that's how you get ahead, right? You hustle. Yeah. You get out there and you put your product, whatever that product is. In
Mm-hmm.
my case, it was photos or whatever. And I would even write copy that went along with those photos so that they could use that copy if they wanted to, right? Some background on the story of that image or whatever. But that doesn't just, I mean, that's not just for what I do. That's for anything. Like,
Mm-hmm.
whatever your product is that you offer or that you're interested in or that you're passionate in, you got to hustle it, right? You got to put it out in front of people.
You got to sell it. We're really all
Yeah.
selling. I mean, there was a
Yeah.
guy one time, shout out to Chris Mikowski. We were in a bike shop. He's like, I love sales because you're either selling or you're getting sold. And I was like,
Yeah.
damn, yeah, okay, I'm gonna go hustle. So
Right.
so then switching to the team aspect, I had a guy who was like, hey, I'm looking at like local teams. There doesn't seem to be anything like great. It really feels like a fit. Where should I start? And I told him, start with the squad. Who would you want to race with?
Mm-hmm.
And he's a cat 4. So I'm like, let's go realistically. You really don't, you're going to get like, the car dealer is going to give you $500 and maybe
Mm-hmm.
the sub shop's going to give you a couple $100. But like,
Right.
if someone, I said, how do you guys as DNA, like, yeah, it was pretty cool to come in and you guys really helped me see a bigger picture of like bikes, kits, reg fees. There was a lot of things going on. Whereas I'd kind of always cobbled together like a couple of them. And I see it, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it was like you were able to convey the value to the partners. They weren't just sponsors. And that's, I think, how did you usually say that? You're like, I don't want to get a sponsor. I want to get like a partner with our
Yeah,
team.
that was kind of our verbiage. We didn't want a sponsor. We wanted somebody that we could partner with. For example, um, like if we had a car dealership as a sponsor, we didn't want them to just give us a car that we could use. We wanted them to come to our weeknight crit that we put on
Mm-hmm.
and do something that created value at that crit for, like, for example, we had Fowler Volkswagen or Fowler Toyota. I think it was a couple of different Fowlers over the years, but they would come to our weeknight crit and set up this little area for kids to hang out at, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that you could bring your kids to the crit and they could play while you're racing, right?
Yeah.
That's a great value, right? And that's not a monetary value, but that's like an in-kind added value to the event that we put on every weeknight, right? The
Mm-hmm.
crit. And that was a partner instead of a sponsor, right? They got some value out of it. We got value out of it. And it was like this kind of partnership, if you will. And that's what we always that's what we always strived for with our sponsors, that we wanted them to be involved. We didn't want just a check, right? We wanted them to be involved in what we were doing. We wanted to partner with them on social media. Like, we provided imagery to our sponsors so that they could use, right? Like, we're providing value back to them. It's not just a one-way street, them giving us a check. Like, we also provide some sort of a value for them. And we would start group rides from the coffee shop that sponsored us, or,
Right.
It's when you're in a sport like we're in, where it's you're at the mercy of sponsors, you have to create a value back for them, right? Like, it's unless you just have a sponsor that's flush with cash and they just like you and they don't want anything in return, which is rare. It does happen, but it's rare. You have to create some sort of a value back for them, even if it's not quantifiable. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So we felt like partnering was better instead of saying sponsors.
I think the photography thing of lending them imagery and other things like content that they can reuse is a really great way for people to start. So it's like, hey, who's good at photos? Get some good photos, engaging with the products, things like that. That's real. So then when you kind of going back to the personal thing, was Allied the first big brand that you had worked with or in the cycling space?
Yes.
So how did you approach that? Like, I think as a lot of entrepreneurs see, like, when your business starts to take off, you're kind of like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, oh my God, is this working? Yeah. What are ways that you were like, okay, got this one, gonna keep expanding this, like, the iron's hot, I'm doing something right. How do you kind of manage that growth mindset?
I kind of first of all, getting into where I'm at currently, I just backed into it. It wasn't, I hate, this probably doesn't go along the lines of like how things are supposed to go, but I just accidentally,
That's life, though. That's how these things happen.
We as a team reached out to Allied because we were a huge fan of the brand. We thought it was cool and had a nice, story to it because they're made here in the United States. So we reached out to them for a sponsorship, and in the sponsorship partnership, we offered to provide them with content. And, that was an area that they were lacking in at the time. They had a really nice thing going with the brand, but they weren't telling their story in a way that we felt that they could. So we were like, well, we'll help you with that. And then we closed that deal. And then I can't remember how long down the line it was. They were starting to use some of our, images or whatever. And I just pitched the brand I got this wild idea that I'd pitch them on the brand of, hey, why don't you let me run your social media? And I actually sent them a bunch of like sample posts, right?
That's a really good
idea. I would have posted on their account if I was running it, right? And that started like a month to 2 month long, conversation and negotiation, and kind of the rest is history. We worked a deal. I work like on a year contract basis with them, which is how I do all of my clients at this point. But that was my first one. And it literally, I just backed into it. I just got this idea that I would pitch them on it. And then the rest has kind of become history, where I'll get approached by a brand that found out that I was running the Allied social media or someone else, right? And so it's just kind of been a slow growth process that was fully accidental.
I love that you say it's accidental and you backed into it when you thought about pitching them. You made sample posts. You were like everything but just getting back to him. Like, you pretty much made that happen, which is
but like I guess accidental
you can't, but I'll pat yourself on the back. There you go.
Accidental in the case that I never thought it would grow to other clients.
Which is like Chris King. Can I name some of these that I know?
I do some project work for some of these other clients, but I do like the Meteor, I do a Rundle, I do an outdoor apparel brand as well. So I have and these are what I would call full-time clients that I work with, right? I do have some companies that I work with, like on project basis when they need photos or whatever the case may be. I work with Easton a little bit and some other brands, but so I just never expected it to grow, right?
Yeah.
So when I say backed into it, that's what I mean. I kind of backed into it like on accident, right? I never thought 5 years ago that this is what I would be doing, but I mean, I'm extremely happy this is what I'm doing,
Yeah.
right?
That's the
So
amazing part of life. It's like the journey. You can never. I'm a big believer in like I feel like my life cycles in 4 years. I like look at 4 year chapters. It's been very odd.
okay, yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
oh, interesting. So I'm sure they'll change now that I've like caught on to that. But as is like
right,
ever since college, the first 4 year cycle, I've been on these 4 year like things, and it's very
yeah.
interesting.
I'm very similar, and a lot of it is because I like doing different things. I get bored. I want to do new things and, challenge myself. And again, I don't want to get a real job. And so, I mean, I guess if someone was watching this podcast or whatever, and they had to like pick out like a small segment of this,
Yeah.
to watch or listen to, it would be this part right here. I always tell people that you should do what you want to do and
Mm.
what makes you happy. Forget about the money. Forget about everything else. Example, I'll give you an example. Well, you for one, you're an example, but we already know about you. Your viewers already know about you. I've got a friend who has always been like a wild, free-spirited kind of guy, but he got into the corporate world of medical device sales, and then he started making this money, right? And then he started spending money and buying nice cars, and he accumulated debt, right? But this is a free spirit guy who never he doesn't fit there. He's not happy there.
Mm-hmm.
He got drawn into that whole money making, like, and then
It's
spending and then going into debt, right?
a big
And
thing. Yeah.
we all know this. Like, we've all kind of, at least in big ways or small ways, been here. But he came to me a couple years ago and he's like, man, I'm so unhappy. How can I do what, how can I work for myself? And I was like, get rid of your car. You don't need a nice car. Trim down your life, pare down your life, and do what you want to do. He's in a phenomenal, he used to be a yoga instructor, and he used to be one of the best in the city here. And he got out of that for money. And I'm like, what do you love to do? And he started rattling off these things that he loves to do. And I was like, do them.
Mm-hmm.
And he couldn't do it, and he's still not doing it. And he's still unhappy. And so my advice to people is always do what makes you happy, even if you don't make much money, because in the end, I know we all need to be comfortable, right?
Right.
But like, what's more important than that?
So
I know a lot of people who make a lot of money and they're extremely unhappy at their job.
100%. And well, I think this is interesting. I did not see the story going that way. I thought this guy was going to become like go back to yoga.
Still
But
unhappy.
dude, here's
Yes.
the thing. I mean, I think it's a really what's the action step? Because everyone who hears you say that is like, yeah, dude, I gotta pay the bills though. I
Sure.
do that. But there's something to be said. I will always remember I was moving to Tennessee. I didn't really know what I was going to do. I was like, and my mom, when I first moved to Chicago, she's like, you're moving there without a job? I'm like, I'll figure it out. Like, there's lots of jobs.
Sure.
But I was leaving the Simon School with my books, and this guy's like, hey, man, I really admire what you're doing. And I was like, what did I like win something that I don't know? He's like, and I was like, you got me. Like, what admire what? He's like, you're just like picking up and you're moving. And I'm like, you could do this. He's like,
yeah.
no, man. I mean, and he lived behind me, the street behind me. He's like, no, I've got that house. I've got a good job. I'm like, yeah. I just sold my house, and yeah, I'm going to go get a different job down in Tennessee. Like, I just couldn't do that. And I'm like, you really could. And it kind of like, I remember that telling myself, don't ever have that mindset. Like, don't be scared to pick up and go somewhere. And the less stuff, we're good at accumulating things like, we're in America, buy this really big house, fill it with stuff. And Chris and I have a small house here. There's no room to fill stuff with, which is great. Otherwise, we just have a ton of crap that we don't need.
100%.
But so what do you think to that guy? You're telling him, okay, go do what you love to do. How does he make money though?
Some people aren't wired to take that risk. And I understand that. Like, I've always been willing to take risk in life, and I've failed a lot. I've failed countless times.
Part of it. Got to be okay with that.
you have to be able to be okay with failing. And what I would,
sorry to cut you off. Be
yeah,
okay failing publicly, because
yeah,
you gotta like. When I left medical device, people were like, "Oh, you're not doing medical device." And I'm like, "No, I have this like cycling coaching brand." And they're like, "Oh, sort of like, oh, that's cute. Like,
yeah, exactly.
you must make
Oh,
$5." And I'm like,
for you, yeah. Have fun
"Thanks,
with
see
that.
ya."
Have fun with that lifestyle. Yeah,
Yeah. And it's just, you gotta like be okay with people's misunderstanding of what you're
sure.
doing. And
Yeah,
but what would be an action step? Because I guess one thing that I think of is there's people that talk about like, hey, okay, if you ever read like a Gary Vee book, he might be like, go do your 9 to 5. If you're willing then to hustle from
right,
6 p.m. till midnight, start
right,
building your other business.
sure.
You don't have to go crazy and quit and have no money to not have a plan. Like, but start like take action. So many people that say,
Yeah,
well, I would really love to do that. Great, do it. It might mean that you don't watch TV at night and you don't go to the bar and you don't
yeah,
stick around doing nothing.
right.
What would maybe be, how do you view that of like, if your buddy had really been like, okay, what's my action step? Like, what should he have done besides get rid of the stuff he doesn't need, trim down
Sure.
the car, like, how do you, is it
Well,
just
I think that's the first action step, is finding out where's your excess in life, right? Like my buddy has this, I was just talking about, who hasn't taken that step that he probably should. He has gotten himself into house and car debt that is hard to get out of. It really is. But I mean, for example, when I used to drive a $4,000 Toyota Yaris that
Mhm.
I paid cash for, right? And that helped me in a time when I wasn't making a lot of money,
Yeah.
right? I didn't have a car payment. Insurance was really low. Thing got 40 miles to the gallon. Also, I never had to lock it too, which was cool, because nobody's going to steal anything out of that car, right? Um, and honestly, looking back, I'm 40 years old. Looking back on my life, that was my favorite car I've ever had. And
That's
I've
awesome.
had some nice cars along the way, but that was my favorite one because I didn't owe anything on it.
Yeah.
It was super dependable, and I never had to lock it because no one was going to steal anything out of it. Like that was like the simple things in life, right? It's like that was a simpler time. So I mean, I'm digressing here, but what I'm saying is,
No, that's
like,
good.
if you're underneath a heavy car payment or a heavy house payment, do you really need either one of those things? I
Hmm.
mean, maybe you do always have to have a payment on a car because you don't make enough money, but you could have a payment on a $4,000 car that's
Right.
still dependable.
Hmm.
Um, I don't look at, but again, I don't look at material things as important to me. I look at being happy, and experiences are important to me, right? So I just see things a little bit differently than maybe like your average suburban, American does. But I want to be happy, and I want to do fun things in life, and I want to travel, and I want to do what I want to in life. I don't want to be held down by a job that I don't like, even if I'm making $1 million a year, I don't care.
Well, I think it's interesting. We have the viewpoint too. We have a sport like cycling, and I want to get into the horseshoe hell. Like you're a mountain climber, rock climber, whatever you want to
Sure.
exactly call it. But I remember when I was doing the 9 to 5, I was actually in recruiting. And when I was in Chicago, it was my first job out of college. And I remember seeing like where the next step, like what the next position was. Like, I don't want to do that. And that's when I moved back east. But the thing was, like, I left a bar on Friday night and I was like, this is interesting. Like, I feel like I'd got into medical devices. I'm like, my cycle is like work, kind of hang out on the weekends and then go to work. And like, there's a lot of people that don't have a thing like cycling where they don't even know like what the passion is, what the love is,
Mhm. Sure.
what the other thing is. And so I think we're talking, I'm sure this is 95% cyclists are going to watch it. Maybe
Sure.
there's a few triathletes out there. We won't judge you
Right.
for that. You guys have this other passionate thing in your life. And if you can find a way to follow that, and it is like the corny cliche thing, but if you follow a passion, so many more doors will open up that I never even knew were going to be there.
Yeah.
And trying to have those experiences and
Well, I'm going to guess in your instance, if we're talking about you
Mhm.
probably work a lot better in what you're doing now than what you did before because you like it,
Oh yeah.
right? You're
Yeah.
performing better. You're more efficient. You know, Monday morning, you don't wake up dreading work,
Dude,
right?
I used to hate Sundays. I
Yeah.
hated Sundays. I mean, number one, I was hungover. But number two, it was just like, I got to go to this hospital and I got to
Right.
deal with these people and I hate this and I want to ride and da da da. And really, though, I think there's a book called Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod that I read with Chris because he was going to this dental conference and this guy was going to speak there. So we're like, let's read this dude's book. Read the book and I was like, that's amazing. This guy's story is really cool. He has a lot of great like life pointers. I highly recommend it. It's a quick read. He goes, there is a way in life to wake up every morning where you kick the sheets off and you feel like it's Christmas. And I was like, okay, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
And now though, I will say I've a lot in my life has changed since getting married,
Yeah.
refocusing on positive things. And I
Right.
think about this dude when I wake up and it's Monday morning, I'm like, yo, dude, let's get it. And Cooley's like, let's get it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
damn, I would not be saying that if I was about to trudge off to the
For sure.
hospital. And
Right.
it's like we're just talking to athletes from all over the world. And I'm talking to people like you. And we're
Right.
making these blogs and helping people get faster and find
Right.
ways to enjoy the bike. It's like I kind of people say it's like cycling coach and I'm kind of like, well, yeah, it's kind of like cycling media platform. It's more like coaching cyclists to be happy rather than just get fast.
Well, yeah, you're not, I mean, a happy cyclist is probably a faster cyclist.
100%.
And
100%.
it's a cyclist that's not as burned out. And
Yeah.
it's a cyclist that doesn't get overtrained. It's a cyclist that stays, you know, they're riding to get fast. They're also riding because they love it, right? There's a difference. And that gives you longevity for the long haul, for the, like, the guys that I know that are just training for training, right? That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
They go through these real weird cycles of like burned out, real motivated, burned out, real motivated. But if you love it, right?
Yeah.
If you love it, you stay on this, like, yeah, you're hitting these peaks with your training, right? And I don't know anything about what you know about training. I'll be the
I
first.
love how little you know about it, but how fast you got when we started talking. I'm like, Andy doesn't know shit about biking.
I know nothing. I literally know nothing. I wouldn't even, I could not tell you how to peak for a race.
Because
But
you won't even do an interval. I was like, please do some intervals. You're like, no.
well, this is my fitness level through a year. I don't do any of these. But what I'm trying to say is, even someone who is peak, like a one of your, you know, students or whatever, right? One of your clients, if they're still having fun at all these levels of peak and like base, whatever, you know,
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to burn out, right?
Right.
There needs to be a passion there, and that's probably where a good coach can distinguish themselves from just a regular coach, keeping people motivated when things aren't great, right? And you know, it's
helping
not
them
just coaching.
And helping them pull back, because like once the fitness starts taking off and it's like, I need to do more, like I'm seeing good results, so let's pour gas on the fire. I'm like, that's not really how this works. You're going to go up in flames as opposed to like taking off.
Right.
So, like, sometimes it's pulling people back, which is,
Yeah.
it's tough. That's actually harder than motivating people. Like I do the cheerleading that I need to do, but that is like, since I'm like a pretty direct person, if you're not riding, I'm not going to be like, you really need to ride. You really need to ride. Like, you have to want to ride if you want to be good at this sport.
Yeah.
I had a shout out Nick Zito. He was, when we were both Cat 5s, he was like the dude, and we're close friends. But I remember he was like, I hate riding by myself. And I was like, I'm going to be better than this guy, because if you can't ride by yourself and you don't want to like train, it's going to be really hard to always be training with a training partner. Like, it's just not, we're adults. We don't have that ability. But
yeah, I agree.
So the mountain, so is it rock climbing, rock climbing, I guess?
It's like technical. Yeah, it would be rock climbing. So it would be like technical kind of gymnastic climbing on a rope.
So wait, what you do? Is that how you describe it?
When I use the word gymnastic, I mean more like really difficult moves, right? Like, you're not summiting Everest, the type of climbing I do. The type of climbing I do, you're on a rope and you're making these really hard moves on like a 100-foot cliff,
Okay.
right, face.
And so anybody, this is a good point for everybody that wants to put on an event, because you host the biggest rock climbing, 24-hour rock climbing event in North America.
Here's the thing.
World?
I don't know for sure, but I've been told it's the biggest rock climbing competition in the world, period. We're also the longest running one now too, I believe. So I think we've been
going. How long has it been going on?
16 years. Yeah.
So are you counting this year? Did the streak die?
We didn't have it this year. Yeah, we had to cancel it.
So we'll make that as an asterisk. Next year we'll still be 17.
Yeah. For sure. We had a virtual event, so it counted.
Oh,
yeah.
It does count. That does count. How did this start? And I mean, you have sponsors on board for this type of thing. Excuse me, partners on board for this type of thing.
Yeah.
This kind of goes hand in hand with people that want to throw a bike race. And I wouldn't do that because I think that, I'd want to be racing rather than throwing it. But like, it's a lot of work. Sure. How is this something that you love to do? Is this something that is more like a business side for you that you're like, well, I can make some money doing this. I think I'll do it. And I like it. It's a big party. How did Horseshoe Hell happen? And like, where's it going?
Yeah, I backed into this one too on accident as well. Like me and a bunch of buddies were out climbing at this private ranch, rock climbing ranch in Arkansas. And we just got this wild idea of there's so many different routes out there that we got an idea to put on a 24-hour climbing event, really with just our buddy, just us. And then it kind of like, it really just kind of evolved into, hey, let's invite 50 people out and see how many rock climbing routes we can climb in 24 hours. And none of my buddies wanted to do the work to make it happen. And so I was like, yeah, I'll take over. I'll try. Right. And so I went to the owner of the ranch and asked him and pitched the idea. And he said, yeah, you can do whatever you want. Just make sure that you let me know what you're going to do.
So this is in like 2000? No, this is in 2003?
That would have been 2006.
2006. I'm good at math.
Yeah. So this would have been our 15th year, I think. Our 15th year. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, so our first year, we kind of just threw this thing together and had 120 people. We were blown away.
That's crazy.
And then within 2 years, I had Patagonia on board as title sponsor. And they've been title sponsor ever since. We are the largest event that they sponsor in the world every year. So we just kind of got lucky, as in I fashioned this event to be very community driven. And I actually gave all of the participants, attendees, anybody who come, like they kind of own the event every year. They get to make decisions. We have this big Facebook private group where we talk about what's going on that year and new ideas that anybody has about what they want to do. And we got, I don't know, like 3,000 people in that group.
Wow.
And people just throw out ideas and then we vote on them. And it's this weird, like open sourced kind of event, right? Where people get to make the decisions or at least vote on the decisions on what happened at the event each year. And so people feel like they own a little piece of this event. And it creates more buy-in, and it creates really what it's kind of done is created like this little cult, essentially. And I say that in a positive way, like a positive cult.
Totally. Yeah.
A good cult where the cult leader doesn't try to have sex with everyone. Right?
That's the snippet. That's the like Facebook clip right there.
That's the key for a cult's longevity. Is the leader should never try to have sex with everyone,
Just a few.
Yeah. So, so it's, we've had really great results. I mean, we have a couple thousand people every year. I can only allow 500 climbers in. Mm-hmm. And, we typically have anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 people apply for those 500 spots every year. So there's a really high demand we do a lottery is what we do. So if you get in and you hit the lottery for sure.
Is it a real lottery? Like,
Yeah, it is a
legit.
real lottery. Yeah, we randomly pick. Yeah.
Because so that's, how do people feel like if they've been there? See, I haven't been able to get into DK, and the one thing that irks me a little bit is that it's like, have you done this race before? And I'm like, no, because I can't get in. And I
Right.
feel like people that have done it, and granted, I'm okay if you've
Sure.
done it for 5 years and you were one of the first ones there, like, hey, you beat me to it. But
Right.
that's just not how, I don't know. I guess I get the lottery, but I'm like, this one just doesn't seem fair. So maybe I don't know. I guess I'm just
Yeah,
sad.
you would think that they would give a little bit, they would give maybe, I don't know, I guess that they could probably open up spots for first timers, like definitive spot, like a certain number, right, for first timers. That way people will, I mean, maybe that way more people can experience the event kind of thing.
I
We
sometimes
have a,
wonder, why does there have to be a limit? For yours, it's because there's no room on the rocks.
yeah, for
Like,
sure. We have to have one. I'm not
bike
sure about
race,
DK.
I mean,
I'm
just
really not sure on the DK thing. I really have no
put
idea.
waves in, and who knows, maybe it'll change since that one dude is gone. But
Yeah.
with the Facebook thing, that's interesting. So we have a WhatsApp group, and I like the idea of a cult because we have a WhatsApp group. There's probably about 50 something people in there, just to
Yeah.
like share ideas, whatever. The thing
Right.
that I've almost considered is moving it to Facebook for a couple reasons. Number one, for like voting capability. Uh,
Yeah.
Number two, people that use WhatsApp for texting, you can mute the channel, but some people don't
Sure.
get a text message.
Sure.
But the thing that I like is that, and I would only move it to Facebook to allow more people in, like people that have done, like, we'll do like $8 training plans for people, or people that
Mhm.
are no longer with us. And I'm like, you can leave. I'm still cool with you. Is there a
Sure.
way though to give some priority in voting or anything, to people that are like actually paying athletes, or like
Question.
besides a
Uh,
moderator? Maybe
I'm
that's,
really not sure about that. I mean, as far as I know, it's possible that
you guys are
people
all
are.
equal though?
What's that?
You guys are like all equal in the chat, just like,
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to assume that there's even people in our group that have never even been.
mm,
I don't know that for sure. I think the vast majority of people are regulars and have been every year and they come and that type of thing, or they've come in the past and they just want to stay up to date with what's going on. It's
right.
actually a pretty tight knit community. We have like it's a really weird, I say weird, it's a really interesting vibe because it is a 24-hour rock climbing competition, but the whole event is 5 days. And so it's kind of like this Burning Man-esque,
Mhm.
people wear
Oh,
costumes all weekend,
okay.
and it's not, the 24-hour climbing competition is now a small part of the entire event now. It's very festival-esque now. We
Okay.
have lots of things going on. We have music. We have films playing at night in an open field. It's very cool. But people wear costumes and act crazy, and it's kind of one of these events where you can go and be who you want to be for a week out of the year that you can't be at home. You know what I mean?
You should be that person all the time.
Yeah, you should be, but maybe you don't feel like you can be or whatever.
Right.
This is that place where you can come and be whoever you want to be, even if it's not you. You can
Yeah.
be somebody else.
I've seen the pictures. It looks pretty
Yeah,
crazy.
as long as you're kind. That's the most. I mean, that's the rule. You got to be kind.
Okay.
And luckily, in 15 years, we've actually had no incidents
You've
at
never
all.
kicked somebody out?
Nope, never kicked anybody out.
Wow.
Yeah. There's never been a fight. Never been one fight. Never been. It's a very interesting, and I think a lot of that has to do with it's a community. Everybody feels like they, even if they don't know you, your neighbors, and your job is to look after your neighbor's campsite, over the weekend, or like it's
Mhm.
very communal, right?
Mhm.
So establishing that vibe at a bike race would be gold, in my opinion. It's hard
Well,
to do.
yeah, it's hard to
Hard
do.
to
I
do.
was actually going to ask you because we were supposed to do
Hard to
Iowa
do.
Wind and Rock, but you broke your wrist. This is becoming a trend. I've just
I
realized.
know.
Um, we could have used you there for sure. When we realized we showed up and we're like, oh, we don't have headlamps. No, we had headlamps. No, we didn't have headlamps, and we didn't have like cue sheet holders. And we're like, we are really effed. So our last racing experience together was going to be like super ultra long gravel. You just did a regular gravel race. What's your plans for racing gravel or road? Are you going to still do Masters Road stuff?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah. I still like it. I mean, especially this year, I've really missed it because we haven't had it, right? Like I can usually get my fix at like the weeknight crits or Texas. Texas has a ton of road racing, so, and that's super close, so we'll go down there and race. But this year has been interesting. I think I'll be like really gung-ho next year because there's been nothing, right? And the past couple of years I've gotten super into the gravel scene, but I'll definitely still race some road.
Are you more into like 100-mile gravel, or are you still thinking like 300-mile, 200-mile, super long, crazy stuff?
Well, into both. I had planned on doing the Arkansas High Country race at the end of this month if I wouldn't have this, and that's 1,000 miles bike packing race.
Dude.
Yeah. So, you're carrying all your gear and your whatever, sleeping.
Did you see Lachlan Morton's EF Gone Racing, the one in Spain?
Yeah, that guy is really good at this discipline. He's really good.
So he didn't sleep. Is that I don't think he slept for 40 hours and just rode.
I think that you could probably get away with that on the 40-hour thing. When you go over that, I think that you're going to have to stop. And like a lot of the people winning these real long bike packing races are sleeping maybe 2 to 3 hours a night. Yeah.
That's typically crazy, because he said he was straight up hallucinating the last 4 hours. And the guy behind him, I'm going to blank on his name. He's a New Zealand guy. He races for Black Spoke now.
Yeah.
He came in second, but he was at 68 or 69 hours. So clearly slept.
Way behind.
Way behind, dude. The times are like middle of the group was like 100 and something hours. Like Lachlan just rode. And it's, yeah.
I think that you would be really good at this if you could put a governor on your speed. Because
I can do that.
No, you try to go too fast.
No, I did the 180-mile Gravel Worlds virtual recently, and for like the first 3 hours, I was like, I'm gonna go middle zone 2. I just did. I was gonna do broken horse something in Iowa. It was supposed to be 200 miles because Iowa got all jacked up from like a hurricane or something.
Yeah.
Now 150. God, what is that called? It's horse something. It's speckled horse.
I guess I haven't heard of it.
Yeah. So it's the people that do Iowa Wind and Rock.
Okay.
They put it on Sarah Cooper. So if you look up Iowa Wind and Rock, that's the same day as, I think it's Speckled Horse. It was Speckled Horse 200, and now it's 150.
Okay.
And my strategy was I was going to go, I haven't ridden with anybody yet. I rode with Patrick like months ago, like right before this really all broke out crazy COVID. But I've been rolling solo still. And so I had made a deal with Chris. I was like, all right, if I go, I'll stay away from everybody. I'll let the race go. This will force me to pace myself, and I'll just ride. I'll just go out and do a bike ride. I'm going to pass people. Like, people are going to explode 80 miles in.
Right.
And then we were like, he's like, okay, but what happens when you catch people that are actually fast? And I was like, yeah, probably not. Okay, I won't go race. So that would be another cool one on the calendar. But
I think that you would be good at 1,000-mile races.
I have a buddy who rode cross country, and Raleigh Weaver actually randomly rode cross country and should have called me. But they both were like, I think you'd be really good at this. People also thought I'd be really good at cyclocross, which I'm horrible at. So,
well, this is just
tame.
But you're really good at long distance stuff. You have that kind of like physiological makeup, right? And if you can get your kit dialed, like your sleeping system and your whatever, and you can governor your speed, right? If you can stay in a zone and be disciplined, right? And if you can sleep 2 hours a night.
That's what I don't know about. I like sleeping. I'm like, I don't know.
Well, what if it's just 2 nights of 2 hours and that's it?
I mean, if I'm racing, maybe I'd have to get into like I would need help with like understanding the packing of things and
Yeah.
carrying all
Yeah.
this stuff.
It's
So
it's just a new, interesting kind of, I say new, it's pretty new, but it's a very interesting new genre of bike racing, right? Like,
mhm,
we're so used to 1 hour crits, 80-mile road races, right? Or, 1 hour cyclocross. Well, you you do a 1,000-mile gravel race and everything changes, right? Suddenly the guy who blows your doors off for 80 miles, he's in trouble because he can't ride recovery pace for 3 days in a row,
mhm.
all day long. Literally, 22 hours every single day of just recovery pace. That's it. Like that's a completely different style of racing. And whether it's exciting or not, you may not be into that, but it's just
Yeah,
a cool, new, different thing, right?
I wonder how hard the gravel is. I mean, there were parts in Oregon Trail where I was like way above. I was like, even if I was physiologically fast enough to race with some of these dudes, which I'm not, uh,
The handling.
technical parts
Yeah,
were
yeah, 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 yeah.
brutal
Right.
for me.
Well, I think it just depends on the race. Like the Arkansas High Country race is 40% pavement, and then I believe 60% gravel, and a super, a lot of climbing, a lot
I
of
like
climbing.
that. I just
Yeah.
need to make sure it's not like a guy sent me on this like cut through route in Asheville to get to this trail. And I
Yeah.
got, and I was like, damn it, I didn't tell him that I suck off road. It was like, I got on the path. It was so damn technical. Within less than a quarter of a mile, I U-turned, went back to the road, and like never back to it. I was like, I'm not even gonna try this.
No, the Arkansas High Country route's not like that. It's just gravel and pavement. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
My last question for you, I guess you kind of actually jumped into this trends. You kind of are good at catching trends with just the state of riding. I mean, our team, I'm not really involved in the Zwift side, but like they jumped on the
Sure.
Zwift thing and they are
Yeah.
the men's team is now international.
Right.
Esports, I think here to stay.
Yep.
Road going through a little like change of things, like Grand Fondos are kind of cool. USA Cycling sort of not as cool.
Right.
Gravel, maybe this bike packing is the next gravel iteration. Where do
Yeah.
you see cycling going if you had to like look in the future? More backpacking, bike packing?
Yeah, but I think so. I think that road will come back. I think it's very cyclical. It's always cyclical, right? Like it kind of goes away, comes back. And also a lot of it kind of follows how American stars are doing in Europe, right? And we got a couple of youngsters who are, you got
Mm-hmm.
Sepp Kuss, that
Mm-hmm.
was killing it at the tour this year.
Killing,
Um,
crushing.
and that gets people interested, right?
Mm-hmm.
The pandemic has gotten people back on bikes, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so you got a guy that's never ridden a bike or a girl, and they jumped on one during the pandemic and they're hooked, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the people that are going to show up racing next year. And those people are going to be interested in road or whatever the case may be. I think you're right on esports, but um, I think that that's definitely going to be a big deal in the future. But I think you got another few years of gravel still growing. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then um, you're going to find people putting on really interesting races. Like we had kicked around the idea of put in Bentonville, putting on like what we were going to call the Rule of Three race, where it's a 90-mile race, but it's 30 miles of pavement, 30 miles of gravel, and 30 miles of single track.
Ooh.
And so it's the Rule of Three, but you have to be at least serviceable in all three to win or to be successful, right? And there are places in America that have that type of infrastructure where you can really get all three of those genres. So I think that in my opinion, people are looking for new and exciting ways to race a bike, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that we're not getting bogged down in the same old thing. So bike packing, things like the Rule of Three race, or maybe even gentlemen's races, which that's what they call them. But like, for example, you have a four-person team and you have a 150-mile course of mixed surface that you have to navigate through that, 150 miles, and you have check-in stations where you have to get cue cards or, maybe a pipe cleaner to prove that you were there. And, the fastest team wins, time trial format, right? So you go off in like teams of four go off in, intervals of 5 minutes, right? And so you're on your own, but you're working as like, those are cool ways to race a bike.
That'd be
Right?
interesting.
Those are super cool ways to race a bike. And I think that the future is thinking of new ways to race. And I think that whatever that may be, I think that people are going to invent new ways, because people are thinking outside the box right now, even, you know? And so if you want to put on a race, think of something cool and new.
Cool, new. Okay. I'm curious, when you guys, how deep did you get into thinking of that? Which part would have been first, second, and third? The road, the gravel, or the single track? And would it have been technical single track? Would I die?
No, because there's a lot of single track in Bentonville that you can ride on a gravel bike. So essentially what you would do is,
what about me?
No, you'd be good. You'd be good.
All right.
You'd be fine.
People forget how bad I am off-road. I'm like, you don't understand. It's not. It's like someone's first mountain bike ride. It's just like, ooh, shouldn't have brought this guy.
No, a rule of 3 race would be, I think that what we thought as far as like logistically speaking would be best to start off on pavement.
Okay.
That way you have a group, right?
Mass
start. Yes, it'd be a mass start. And then you roll gravel, and then you finish with the 30 miles of single track. Because, well, there's 2 reasons. The first reason is you want it to be really hard, and that's a hard way to finish, right? That's an extreme. Mile 60 to 90 is all single track. Ugh, terrible, right?
Yeah.
But you also have thinned groups. You've thinned the herd out, right? If you started off on single track, you'd have, let's just say, 700 people trying to ride single track together. That's a disaster. That's a disaster, you know?
No, yeah, I like that though, because then it's I can try and hammer people's face in the first 60 to give myself a bit of padding.
Get away solo.
I can maybe get a top 20 there. I'm all right with
that. Also, like a race like this is really cool because you got to think about equipment, tire choice.
Yeah.
What can you ride fast on pavement, still serviceable on gravel, and you're not going to pop your tires on single track? Like, there is a lot of like equipment choice. Like,
so single track, does that necessarily mean, I mean, is there like tame and technical? Like, does single track imply like rocks, roots, and like other stuff? Or
yeah, but I think what we were looking at is very smooth single track, like very lots of climbing, lots of descending, lots of flowy kind of, groomed single track.
Okay.
You wouldn't, I mean, in our case, we weren't thinking about doing something super technical, because that would kind of ruin, like, you'd need a mountain bike, and you want to race road on a mountain bike. You don't, you want something that's going to be at least attainable with a gravel bike. Right. So that was kind of our thoughts, but still 30 miles of it is still, it's brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal. Because the single track in Bentonville that we were looking at to work that out is over 1,000 feet of climbing per 10 miles.
Wow.
So you're looking at least 3,000 feet of climbing just in the single track.
They have some steep pitches there. I took a
it would be an extremely hard day.
Yeah.
But that's cool, right? That's a challenge that your racers are going to race it. And then your casual rider, they're going to have a goal of just finishing it, right? And so you got something for everything, which I think is the future of bike racing, right? Like, just like gravel is, you've got people at the pointy end of the race, and they're ripping it, and they're looking for the win, right? And then you've got, Johnny in the back that, this is his first 100-miler, and his goal is to finish, So you got something for everything, and everybody can hang out and have beer and drink and eat at the finish,
Yeah. There's a different vibe to those races. I mean, and I hope as the road kind of like circles back and kind of goes through whatever reformation it is, that there is that like a little bit like more carefree vibe, not like getting on a start line and no one's talking to each other and everyone's like, I don't know. I think that's necessarily just road race nerves, but it's a whole different conversation. But
it's hard to do just because road racing is very competitive, and it's very kind of like type A, kind of like, and I get that. Like, there's lots of egos in road racing, right? There's lots. We all have an ego if you road race and you're even remotely decent at it, you got an ego. But you got to
Yeah.
be able to push that aside and invite new people in and be welcoming, right?
Yeah, it's definitely not welcoming. That's the biggest thing that I've
Right.
tried to personally embrace, of just
Yeah.
saying what's up to the new person on a ride or
Yes.
whatever. Because
Yes.
that's the one thing I hated when I showed up in basketball shorts. No one said a word to me.
Yeah.
And then when I started beating people, everybody wanted to be my best friend. And I was
You
like,
were
that's
cool.
funny. I've been here for a few months and you wouldn't even look at me
Yeah.
before. Now
Yeah.
I'm kicking your ass and now we're buddies. Like,
Yeah.
nah, bro. Not
That's
a
been
good
the
look.
road scene since the beginning of the road scene, right? You
Yeah.
know, but
All right. I'll have to change that.
yeah, I mean, if you have people that leaders in the scene that are willing to buck that trend, right, and be approachable and whatever, you can change that vibe, you know. And I think that'd be cool. It'd be really good for road racing, in my opinion. Yeah,
Agreed.
yeah,
Dude, this was awesome, man. Shedding a lot of light on, outside of cycling, just following, I don't even want to say following your passions, that's overused, but following what you enjoy in life, figuring out a way to make that work as part of your life and more of your day to day. I mean,
do what you want to do in life. You only got. I mean, it's super cliche, but you only have one.
yeah.
You got
No,
one life, right? Do you really want to spend it 8 to 5 every day going into a punch a clock that you hate? Like,
yeah,
there's no good in that, right?
yeah.
I mean,
I think we also don't give ourselves enough credit of what we're going to be able to achieve. And I think people that aren't surrounded by other people that were entrepreneurs, and when it's not a real life thing, like they're just seeing other people on social media, it's harder to grasp. But I think I think that's gonna be my last send off, is like the action step is like start your entrepreneurial project after the job that you hate. Like go do
yeah,
that job that sucks and then go start working on something that you really love and see how much more energy you put into it. And I mean, I look back and of course, I wish I started doing this years ago, but
yeah,
I didn't go after it. And I didn't think, like, I was blogging about a ton of things, just not coaching. And had I
yeah.
thought like, oh, I should blog about all these things I'm like talking to my coach about, would have been a great idea, but that's why we're doing it now. So
If I went bankrupt tomorrow and lost everything, lost all of my clients, I would still be glad I did this, because it's worth it. It's totally worth it. And so, I mean, some people work an 8 to 5 that they love, and you should do that, right? If
right,
that's what you love.
totally.
But whatever it is, do it. Whatever you love, do it.
And I
Because
think if you lost everybody tomorrow, that because you've gone through this process, you'd be able to rebuild something bigger and better again.
sure,
So,
yeah, yeah, I agree.
dude, my man, thank you.
It's
Appreciate
always good talking to you, man. When are you going to come stay at the house again?
Well, I'm actually moving East Coast. Yeah. So
Jackie misses you.
I miss Jackie. I miss seeing you guys, man. No, I'll be out there at some point for sure. I was actually thinking of, so we're moving to North Carolina and going to be about 80 miles from my sister. Going to
Nice.
be drivable back to upstate New York. There's just a
A
lot more.
lot of hills to climb on a bicycle out there.
Dude, I'm going back in not this weekend, but next weekend with my road bike. I had my gravel bike.
Yeah.
You can appreciate this. So Blowing Rock is this little mountain town. It's south of Boone. It's right off the Blue Ridge Parkway.
Yeah.
So our house is going to be, I think it's like a 10-minute bike ride to the Parkway.
Oh, that's amazing.
This guy's like, oh, you brought your gravel bike. Let me give you this route. Go to Globe Road off Main Street and take a right. You hit gravel. I'm like, right out of the town. And
Yeah.
like in Memphis, there's no gravel. I've
Right.
never lived anywhere where I'm like, wait, there's gravel right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I ride down Main Street, all these cute little stores. And I'm like, oh, Globe Road. I take a right. He's not kidding. Like, it's gravel. And if you look on a map, I didn't realize this. The town is on a ridge. I'm descending. I'm like braking. I'm like, when is this thing going to stop? I looked down at my Garmin, 15 minutes. So it took me probably a minute and a half to get to that street. It was like 13 minutes of descending. It's a 2,000-foot descent right off the bat. So then you're in this valley, and they sent me up, like, you go down to Globe, North Carolina, you go up Grag Mountain, come back east, and it was like a 30-mile route, 4,000 feet of climbing.
Whoa.
Dude, it was crazy. It was so awesome.
And
so
the road riding out there is phenomenal.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I was like, gravel bike was cool, but I've got this, I think it's like 107-mile, 11,000-foot route planned out. So I'm like chomping at the bit. Can't wait.
We did a bike packing trip out of Asheville a few years back where we were linking up. It's so stupid, but we rode our bikes. We rode our bikes in between these gorges, like Linville Gorge, Red
Yes.
River Gorge, and all those. Right?
Yes.
Linville's close to Asheville.
Linville's
But
Grandfather Mountain.
I can't remember. I'm not sure, but yeah,
Linville's
Linville.
not far from Blowing Rock. Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
So we linked. This was like a 2-week bike packing trip.
Was
And
this,
we were
what did you
linking-
call this? The great terrible, or the
We
terrible?
called it the what did we call it? Oh, the something disaster.
The beautiful
The
disaster.
gorgeous disaster.
Yeah.
Because we were linking gorges. But we had all of our rock climbing gear packed on our bikes and our camping gear, and we were riding in between these different gorges and rock climbing at them. And it snowed on us. It was in November or something like that, into November. Snowed and rained on us. It was disaster. And honestly, I will never forget it because it was so terrible. But now I look back on it fondly, right? Like, because those areas are, riding out there is unbelievable. It's really great.
Yeah, I'm excited. I will definitely never be doing any. I remember looking at your photos and I was like, this looks horrible.
It was insane.
And that you guys were climbing, like I couldn't believe the stuff you guys were doing. It's like, oh, hey, we just climbed this. I'm like, what the, how did the bike, and I'd see the bikes getting like, it was.
We were soaking wet for probably 2 weeks straight. Like it rained on us and snowed on us. And we rode through all these like old abandoned mines, like up in the mountains and like coal mines, I guess. I mean, it was nuts, man. But we finished in Kentucky, or I can't remember, dude. It was all a blur, but it was cool though. It was cool.
God.
But
dude,
the moral of my story is that where you're going to move to is there's really good bike riding out there.
Yes.
So I bet you're stoked. Yeah.
I'm stoked. Hopefully
That's
you
cool.
come that way at one point. I'll be back there at some point for sure.
Oh, we'll come visit you. We got the built out van now.
Oh, dude. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That'll be the
We'll
fun.
come out.
We'll have to talk about van life. We'll get B Money out there with his van. We'll have a big little van rodeo.
Yeah, for sure.
Hell
We would love to come visit.
Awesome, man. Tell Jackie I said hello, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, buddy. Thanks.
Bye, man. See ya.
Bye.